I want to say to Planet Correct. We also believe that, at the end of the day, we come from a black woman. They should have rights to their bodies. We should not be in control of any woman's bodies. And as far as men are concerned, a lot of young men aren't ready to be fathers. And with this happening, it would put them into a place that they're not ready for.
The Willie Lynch letter, the one that was supposedly written by the slave owner in the Barbados to slave owners here in America in order to keep the slave under control. Some people debate the factuality of that letter, whether or not it's authentic or not, but the sentiment in that letter is real. People are still holding on to that slavery mentality to the point to where they think that protecting women is celebrating and endorsing the unaliving of their future. Think about that. They think that in order to protect women, you must support the unaliving of children. Let that sink in. And that only happens primarily in the black community, where black women in certain locations abort their babies more than babies that are born. And what happened to black men wanting to leave a legacy? I'll tell you what happened. It's the rejection of biblical values. When you reject biblical values, then obviously you're turning your back on God and headed towards the devil. It's satanic. It's satanic to want to elevate and celebrate the unaliving of children. I'm going to keep saying that over and over and over again. It is demonic. It is selfish. It is not natural. It is not natural for a woman to want to kill her baby. It is not natural for a man to want to kill their seed. It's demonic. It's perverted. And that is what's happened in America. There's a spirit of perversion that has taken hold, and especially in the black community. It has taken hold to the point to where black women are the most unmarried demographic, and they kill their babies at a rate higher than any other demographic. But instead of being shamed for that, instead of black pastors saying, no, you must stop this because the birth rate is in decline and the population has remained at 13% for decades, instead of speaking out about that, you have these weak black men go on this BET Men's Summit, which was a bunch of beta men coming together to show and pay homage to the matriarchy, to show how buck broken they are, instead of standing up saying, no, we don't need this anymore. This culture of death is leading to destruction and decay in the community. Instead, they say it's the most empowering thing is to listen to black women, because black women are going to save the planet.
Maternal mortality rates amongst black women are exponentially higher in states with Republican-led abortion bans. As black men, our primary responsibility in this humanity is to protect black women.
Yes, indeed.
That's why we're here. And I think protecting black women begins and ends with listening to them about what makes them feel safe. And they overwhelmingly support the right to choose what happens with their body.
You see, this is the type of ignorance I'm talking about. No. You got it twisted, sir. You've been deceived. The ones that are looking to really destroy the black community are the white liberal puppet masters who encourage the black community to unalive their children, who encourage the black community to accept all kind of lifestyles that doesn't lead to reproduction, who encourage the black community to buy into the lie that they're still victims. Those are the ones that want to destroy the black community, sir. But you won't know that because you've been deceived. You've been hoodwinked. You've been bamboozled. You've been tricked to believe that these white evangelicals, these white folks that support Donald Trump want to destroy you. No, it's the white liberals that support BET, that own BET, the one that push all this trash on BET. Have you seen some of these shows on BET and how debaucherous they are and how they make a mockery of the black community? Those are the ones that want to destroy the black community because they paint this image of black culture being hedonistic and out of control. And so what they do to solve that? they promote the unaliving of children. Now look at some of the impacts that this has had on the black community. This is coming from CURE, the Center for Urban Renewal and Education. Check this out. The abortion consumer. Disproportionately, the leading consumer of abortion services is the African American female. According to the United States Census Bureau and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, abortion surveillance report, black women made up 15% of the childbearing population in 2018, yet obtained 33.6% of reported abortions. Black women have the highest abortion ratio in the country, with 335 abortions per 1,000 live births. Let that sink in. 335 abortions per 1,000 live births. That's where I get the number that 20 million black babies have been aborted since 1973. According to the CDC, states that report abortion by ethnicity show black women disproportionately lead in the numbers. For example, in Mississippi, my home state, 72% of abortions are obtained by black women. In Washington, D.C., 55%. In Michigan, 50%. In Alabama, where I went to school, 62%. In many states, similar numbers are found, with black women often aborting at 2 or more times their presence in the population. You don't think this is leading to decay and destruction in the black community? Planned Parenthood targets minority neighborhoods. Look at this. 79% of Planned Parenthood facilities are near minority neighborhoods. Think about that. 79%. Don't you see the agenda at play? Don't you see what's happening? But yet when you reject biblical values, you can't see this. You are so deceived to think that you are protecting a woman by encouraging that woman to exercise her reproductive rights, which are not rights at all. The prevalence of abortion facilities within and near minority communities serves as a major contributor to the rate at which black women obtain abortions. Black women are significantly more likely to have an abortion than white women. Now, this all stems from population control, wanting to control the black population. Because even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the one that feminists love, she said in 2009, frankly, I had thought that at the time Roe was decided, there was concern about population growth, and particularly growth in populations that we don't want to have too many of. I've heard that before. She was accurate. President Nixon declared birth control for low-income women to be a national goal in 1969. And he signed into law the first federal birth control program in 1970. You gotta understand something. Republicans and Democrats both have a hand in this, because Republicans back in the day were the ones pushing for abortion more than Democrats. Nixon and even Ronald Reagan. And Nixon also cited concerns about controlling the black population in some of his conversations. Look at what some of the stuff he said. A majority of people in Colorado voted for abortion. I think a majority of people in Michigan are for abortion. I think in both cases, well, certainly in Michigan, they will vote for it because they think that's what's going to be aborted generally are the little black. You see that? As I told you, we talked about it earlier, that a lot of people want to control the Negro. People who don't control their families are people that people shouldn't have kids. See, it all stems from population control. Margaret Sanger, working with the Negro pastors, Richard Nixon, Lyndon Baines Johnson, they all had this mentality that black people didn't know how to control their families. So therefore, we have to step in and control it for them, i.e. Planned Parenthood. Because these Negroes don't know how to control their families. So we got to stem their population growth. We got to exterminate the weeds. You got to understand that the racist and eugenic roots of the abortion movement. Here it is. Heavily relying on members of the black elite to help craft their message, the Negro Project influenced respected black leaders, enticing them to Sanger's cause. Although leaders such as Marcus Garvey strongly denounced birth control and abortion as detrimental to the survival of the black race, other black leaders and organizations supported Sanger. They included W.E.B. Du Bois, the first black American to earn the Black Bougie Elite. They've always been about the destruction of the other black folks. He was a founding member of the NAACP. Adam Clayton Powell, he was a pastor. There you go. Pastor of the Bissien Baptist Church in Harlem. And Mary McLeod Bethune, founder of the National Council of Negro Women. Wow. And Planned Parenthood continues to persuade the black bougie elite to tell other black folks to kill their children. You got Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, the Congressional Black Caucus, Stacey Abrams, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, all of them promote the elimination of the black family. And this thing goes on and on and on. And it's so funny because at the beginning, Jesse Jackson was strongly pro-life, as a man of God should be. I'll put a link to this report in the description because I want everybody to read it. And as a reminder, here's a video about Margaret Sanger and what she wanted to do in terms of the undesirables.
How did we get to this point? To understand present-day Planned Parenthood, we should understand Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood's founder and hero.
Margaret Sanger was a big proponent of negative eugenics, which was the viewpoint that you should weed out unfit people from the bloodline. So that would be encouraging people not to procreate if they were unfit, feeble-minded, had any kind of mental illness, and that also included forced sterilization.
Words like unfit and feeble-minded were used to describe not only the poor and mentally ill, but also to describe African Americans.
Margaret Sanger stated that birth control is nothing more or less than the facilitation of the process of weeding out the unfit, of preventing the birth of defectives or of those who will become defectives.
In 1921, Margaret Sanger founded the American Birth Control League. Its primary mission was to prevent uncontrolled procreation and establish a world program of birth control.
She states, knowledge of birth control is essentially moral. Its general, though prudent practice must lead to a higher individuality and ultimately to a cleaner race. Margaret Sanger stated that the most merciful thing that the large family does to one of its infant members is to kill it.
In 1939, Sanger wrote a letter to her eugenics colleague, Dr. Clarence Gamble, a member of the Birth Control Federation of America, in regards to setting up the Negro Project, a birth control clinic for African Americans.
She was speaking about serving what she called the Negro population, and in concluding this portion of the letter, she stated that we do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members.
Sanger believed that having an African American minister on staff would ease the suspicion.
African American populations were considered some of these unfit members that should be weeded out. So in this letter, she discusses having African Americans serve other African Americans so they wouldn't be aware that they were seeking to terminate them, to exterminate them by the use of birth control and negative eugenics.
Sanger was quite fond of Dr. Ernst Ruden's work, director for the Society for Racial Hygiene. He would later go on to write Nazi Germany's sterilization laws. In 1933, she published his article, Eugenic Sterilization, an Urgent Need, which promoted programs to eliminate the unfit in order to create a super race. In the late 1930s and 40s, knowledge of Nazi atrocities made words like eugenics and population control unpopular in America. So in 1942, to distance itself in name, Margaret Sanger's American Birth Control League became Planned Parenthood. They weren't just being established in the U.S., it was global. A grim fact in American history was the forced sterilization of women in Puerto Rico. In 1936, sterilization programs spearheaded by the International Planned Parenthood Federation, with funding from the U.S. government, sterilized 1/3 of Puerto Rican women by 1968, making it the highest proportion of childbearing-aged persons sterilized in the world. And today,
Planned Parenthood facilities are generally located in low-income areas, which are heavily populated with minorities. And a lot of times they seek to reach those minorities to help them with reproductive rights, they say, with birth control and largely abortion.
Independent studies have concluded that nearly 80% of Planned Parenthood facilities are set up in minority communities. It's no wonder abortion is the leading cause of death among African Americans, higher than all other causes combined. Mounting evidence against Planned Parenthood's beginning to today continues to fuel public outcry.
The American people should seek to immediately defund Planned Parenthood so that our own tax dollars don't go to support this organization who has been exposed to be lying to the American people for many years, for committing these egregious acts against the youngest children among us. They should be immediately defunded.
It's a shame to see black men be in a so-called Black Men's Summit and advocate for the unaliving of the future of the black community. But I'm not surprised, because these people don't have a biblical worldview. They have a secular worldview that is satanic. They have a selfish worldview where they only think about themselves. They claim to be kings and things like this, but they're acting like paupers. These people don't know what it means to be a real man, because a real man will sacrifice himself for his future. And a lot of these men are irresponsible, and so they want an excuse to not have responsibility for the children they're bringing into this world. That's what it really boils down to. These men are irresponsible and selfish and weak. All they're doing is creating victims, a culture of victimization. That's what they're creating. And people like BT and people like D.L. Hughley and Ben Crump and Michael Ealy, that actor, all these other people are just endorsing this behavior, this destruction in the black community. They are useful idiots for the people that want to destroy the black community. We're not victims. We are empowered for greatness.